Mark, we actually have a question in the chat for you. What do you believe the culpability of the complicit institutions should be?
Mm-hmm.
Are lawsuits enough to prevent such institutional betrayal and gaslighting regarding institutions as Michigan State, USA Gymnastics, Bella and Martha Carioli?
Yeah, great question. So I think a lot of things. I think that when institutions like U of M right now is not giving over, same as Michigan State, not giving over documents, not giving over medical information, not dealing with this. Michigan State still has over 6,000 documents they refuse to give over. Even the Attorney General has thrown up their hands in Michigan and said, well, I can't go any farther. Bullshit. You know what talks in our world? Money. So if Michigan State University would not get federal funding until they complied with the law, guess who would give up the papers? If the Olympics to be cleaned up, I think every sponsor, Coca-Cola, General Motors, whoever sponsors the Olympics, they ought to pull out. And we as consumers should make them pull out and say, you cannot sponsor, because we're not going to buy Coke and we're not going to buy a GM vehicle or whatever it is that whoever the sponsors are these days. We're not going to support you until you pull out. And then when the Olympics gets cleaned up, then we will support you. Then you can support them. So we need to take the money aspect and use it, because what they're doing is they're using money and medals over the safety of athletes and students. And so what we need to do is to say, okay, we can do that too. We're going to take away your funding. We will not fund you unless you turn over the documents, until you have real rules, until you do the training, until you're not just talking the talk, but you're doing the walk, and you're training from the dean of the college all the way down to the person who collects the garbage. Every single person who works on that campus, who works in a hospital, who works wherever, should be trained on how to report trauma, how to help someone, how to recognize child abuse, domestic violence, human trafficking, sexual assault. And there should be consequences, including if a police officer, for example, in New York, if a police officer breaks the law, right, uses his badge to use the drugs that he pulled off the street and, becomes a drug dealer themselves or whatever, which has happened, they lose their retirement. They don't just go to jail. They lose all their retirement. If we looked at those kinds of consequences, we might see some action. Additionally, you all need to do informed voting. We need to hold judges and prosecutors and legislators, everybody accountable. Here's a problem. I hate to keep talking about Nassar, but he's not the only one. But we mentioned Trinae Gonzo. She's assaulted 850 times. Do you think there were 850 charges? No, there were 29 charges. If you look at each person, even if they didn't know yet about the 505 who've come forward, and I know there are more, even if you just look at the 29, if you just look at them, there are probably over 5,000 counts, maybe 50,000 counts. I don't know. Why were they not charged? If someone has a home invasion and someone breaks into the house, and then they break into the garage or into the store next door, and it's one continuous sort of act of crime, they get charged for each and every offense. Why isn't every rape charged? Why does a prosecutor get to tell a victim, again, you don't matter, one is good enough, when they were actually assaulted hundreds of times? We need accountability, real, actual accountability.